It's interesting that point because you mentioned Man United there, and clearly, I think a lot of people saw that potential opening if Ten Hag was to be sacked as where Thomas Tuchel may land. United are big fans of Thomas Tuchel. I mean, it started when Radcliffe was actually trying to buy Chelsea or made a bid to buy Chelsea because Thomas Tuchel was in charge of Chelsea at the time, and their due diligence at the time, the info that was fed back to Radcliffe and his team was that Tuchel was fantastic, a fantastic manager, fantastic tactician, and they were quite impressed with that. Obviously, then that has led to last summer where Radcliffe and Thomas Tuchel have met to discuss a potential opening at Man United. What Man United did was, between about April, when results really started to go south at the end of last season, and the end of their end of season review in the summer, was to sound out a load of different candidates. Someone's told me that it was far more, the names involved were far more than actually have even been reported, because some of those conversations were simple as, what are your plans? And the info that came back was, oh, look, I'm happy where I am, kind of thing. Other candidates went further down the line. There was a select few, of which Thomas Tuchel was one, where it went even further than that. It came into quite in-depth discussions about what Man United would look like under Thomas Tuchel. The information that came back from some of those meetings from Tuchel's side was that he wasn't completely happy or completely comfortable with the structure that Man United were proposing, and that this was an opinion that he had before he sat down with United bosses, that he kind of felt that maybe it wasn't the right fit. And after he sat down with them, he was kind of told, well, you're going to be the manager in this structure, but above you, there's going to be Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, and Jason Wilcox. And then above them, there's going to be another kind of decision-making committee, or at least a committee to sign off decisions, which would include Sir Dave Brailsford, Jim Radcliffe, and also Joel Glazer. And that when Thomas Tuchel went away from that, he kind of felt, well, that is an awful lot of voices in the mix. That it wasn't a case that he was going to get no influence at all, but having a voice as one of three people is a louder voice than, say, having a voice among seven people. And you point out there that he has had kind of run-ins, hasn't he, with other hierarchies in the past, Chelsea for different reasons, PSG for different reasons. And that in the summer, it wasn't as simple as Ineos looking at all these different candidates, sitting down with Thomas Tuchel and actually saying, actually, we think that we've got the right manager here, Ten Hag, so we're not going to appoint you. It was very much a mutual kind of departure from those talks, that Thomas Tuchel wasn't particularly sure. Ineos, again, weren't particularly sure, because also they had Ten Hag in position, who had just won the FA Cup. I think the interesting point after that is that Tuchel, apparently, or his representative, stayed in touch with United and Ineos, and that there was maybe an expectation that if things were to go south at Man United early on in the season, that they could go back to Tuchel and sort of say, look, like, how do you feel now, kind of thing. Obviously, now that option has been completely removed, and the day that Thomas Tuchel was appointed as England manager, in a roundabout way, I think is probably a very, very good day for Erik Ten Hag, because the pool of managers that United were selecting from in the summer is now an awful lot smaller. That if you were to make a decision on Erik Ten Hag, say in the November international break, well, there's no Tuchel now, he's gone to England. There's no Pochettino, he's got a job with the US. Gareth Southgate has said that he's not going to coach for a year. That pool of managers, this huge pool of managers that they were kind of sounding out in the summer, between sort of April and mid-June, has shrunk massively. And that is going to play a part now in what happens with Erik Ten Hag. I mean, obviously, Ineos, they've kind of put their money behind him now, and in the summer said, we think we've got the right guy for the job. I think that probably they felt, bidding him in September, October would look quite embarrassing, given that they, extended his contract in the summer and kind of put their faith in him. The November break is there's a little bit more distance between that decision and November. And so it becomes more of a possibility if results don't pick up. But the massive question then is, if the results don't pick up, who do you get? Because
Van Nistelrooy.
Well, but if you were starting from scratch to look for a Man United manager, say 2 years ago or a year ago, would you pick the guy who's had one season at PSV, or are you appointing him purely because he happens to be in the building, like Kath, the receptionist?
Give it Rue to the rest of the season. Give it Rue to the rest of the season.
And that looks like would be that's going to be the simplest option now, and simply because he is in the building. Great player for Man United. He's had 1 year at PSV Eindhoven. That in terms of coaching stature, he may well go on to be a fantastic coach and manager, and this clip will come back to bite me in 10 years' time. But right now, that experience isn't there. So either you appoint Ruud in the hope that he's going to show that he's this fantastic manager in the way that's and have a great run of results in the way that Solskjaer did, and then it becomes a no-brainer to appoint him, or he does it to the end of the season, and you go back to Southgate, who Ineos have made no secret of the fact that they really love him and really like him in that kind of structure, the structure that Tuchel said he wasn't particularly keen on. And then you've got to face fan reaction. And I do sometimes wonder whether Ineos understand the level of fan reaction that they would get if they appointed Southgate, because it would not be pretty.
A couple of things to say there. I mean, firstly, just on Tuchel, I do wonder whether he might have had a conversation with Ralf Rangnick about United, because those two go back a long, long way. I think it was Rangnick who got Tuchel into coaching in the first place, and they have remained friends. And it would make a lot of sense to me for Tuchel. I don't know this; I have no information to this effect, but I do wonder whether Tuchel would have. You would think it's logical, right, that he would sound out, people who would know United. And obviously Rangnick was absolutely scathing about the state of United and the infrastructure and all the changes that needed to be made to that club. So you sort of think that would have put him on the back foot in terms of considering United from the get-go. In terms of names to replace Ten Hag, I mean, let me throw another one at you, Graham Potter. I mean, he is out of work. He would take it in a heartbeat. He obviously had a significant setback at Chelsea and the job, and I covered him during that time, and the job, there were times where you felt this job just seemed a little bit too big for him. Maybe it came a little bit too early. He wasn't quite ready for it. He's talked a lot about since in interviews about sort of learning from that experience and kind of, not growing up, that's a bit patronizing, but you know what I mean, kind of developing as a manager and improving. I suspect I know the answer to this, but if Graham Potter was appointed, how would that go down with the Man United fans?
I guess I would say that it would be more well received than Southgate, but not by much, because of the incidents you've just mentioned there with what happened at Chelsea. I mean, Graham Potter is certainly someone who has been sounded out. I mean, I think it's been reported before. Graham Potter obviously appeared on Monday Night Football in England and was asked directly, have you had conversations about Man United? And he kind of stumbled over it in a way that made you think, well, yeah, of course you have. The thing with Potter perhaps is that he has got history with Ineos. Ineos tried to appoint him, I think, as Nice manager when they were looking last summer, and he turned it down. So they're obviously someone that they're quite keen on. I guess it depends whether it's Graham Potter or Gareth Southgate, whether Ineos can stomach the negative fan reaction around that, whether they're sitting back and saying, well, we don't really care about what the fans say because we're in these positions of power and we're kind of the experts. We kind of know best, which is fair enough. Should you listen to fans every step of the way? Definitely not. You just have to look at Twitter to see some of the opinions that are out there. But it would be a big gamble, because a manager who starts on the back foot, in a way that Benitez, for example, started at Everton, great manager, but completely the wrong fit. It's very, very hard to come back from that, even if you are a fantastic manager. And my opinion of managers and clubs, and this goes back to Tuchel and England, a manager is only as good as the fit. You can be a great manager at the wrong time at the wrong club. You can be a mediocre manager in a great fit at a great club and do really, really well. I do wonder whether, I suppose in the fullness of time, we'll learn whether Tuchel and international football in England is the right fit, and maybe beyond that, we'll see whether Southgate, Man United, and Ineos is the right fit.